Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of our Red Brick Reno. I'm here with Dean from Backman Builders and I'm Anthony from Outlier. Look, things have progressed here. When we were last here, we were talking about the rectification works that needed to take place for the timber subfloor. Look, the new stumps are in now. We've got new joists. The subfloor has been straightened and the real fun part, as far as I'm concerned, has now begun. So I haven't, but Backman and the team have been installing the Proclimax stanza over the top of the joist, and that now sits flush with the bottom of the joist so that we can now install bulk insulation into that space. Some of the air sealing details are pretty interesting, Dean. Are you able to sort of talk more about the product that's being used and how you're going about doing that?
Yeah, for sure, mate. So as we see, generally when you're putting a wrap down, it's done in a different manner because you might be applying it on top of a frame or underneath a flat surface. So obviously with retrofitting on a project like this, we've got the detailing that we're looping, taping. The boys are spending quite a bit of time on this. It probably is the most time, labour aspect to what we are doing on this project, but this is what's going to really bring the energy efficiency up. Basically, we've got the Proclimax gear here. So this is a class 4 weather resistive membrane. Basically, the boys have got this laid down and looped. We've got a pressure sensitive tape here, and then that gets applied with some pressure to make sure that it's going to bond and stick. So yeah, it's an unconventional way to new construction, but what we want to display is this is what people really can do in their own homes to really bring energy efficiency up.
Well, that's a good point you make there. Yeah, this is, again, just to restate what we've already said before, but this home, we're keeping to the existing footprint, the existing structures being retained, and this is essentially how we can retrofit this existing home to really make it a really comfortable and healthy home. Now, the reason that we're installing this particular membrane or wrap over the joist is because we don't have any clearance in the subfloor to get underneath at locations to be able to install it like you would traditionally in the subfloor. And also, probably more importantly, is that this is probably unusual for most people to see a wrap being installed in a timber subfloor. So what that's doing is two things. One, it's providing our continuous airtight layer, which is then adhered to the bottom plate of the stud walls, which continues that up the plaster and that continuous airtight control layer. And it also then allows or reduces any wind washing or reduction of the insulation performance by wind pushing against that insulation. So it's stopping that from occurring as well. One of the important things that does need to be considered, though, is what's the ventilation doing underneath the subfloor? And have you done anything, Dean, like to be able to increase the airflow into there to mitigate any moisture or anything that may still find its way in through the ground?
Yeah, definitely. So just due to the fact this is an older home, we have cleaned out and flattened out the subfloor, but to come in and excavate out another couple of 100 millimeters is not practical because then you start affecting the footings and so forth as well. We've got an inline fan underneath, which is basically creating ventilation. It'll recycle all the air underneath and then take it back out through a point via a duct system as well. So it's something that we've used in a couple of different formats. Such as like basement ventilation, just so that we're making sure that flow is there. So it's something that, there's a lot of old homes that might have moisture issues and so forth, and that's something that probably isn't known widespread about in the building industry.
Look, I immediately when we did the initial visit to site, we could see that there was an inadequate amount of subfloor ventilation. It does still have your typical subfloor vents, but there's just not enough of them for the actual space or volume that's underneath this home. We do have one here, which you can see. Now, the interesting thing is that it sits almost level with where the bottom of the joist are. So it actually comes in at the insulation layer. So there's a nice little detail that we'll showcase later on how that's going to be achieved. But what that'll allow is that extraction, that singular inline fan that Dean talked about, it's sort of central to the home, is now extracting air out of this subfloor space and forcing a higher volume of air through the existing vents that are here. Rather than trying to increase the amount of vents, we're going to increase the airflow. And that covers our external ventilation strategy. Might touch on the internal ventilation strategy. So we have mentioned there are HRV systems in the home. So do you want to just maybe walk through what's happening there as well?
Yeah, definitely. So we've got decentralized HRV systems, and we've got the Lunos options that we're looking at the moment, and we're currently just running through a couple of those with our clients. So there's some models that are the E260s. They act as a push and pull system. So you'd use a pair. So you want to keep even numbers. So we're just exploring that at the moment. Their next model up, which is literally called their next model. So that was particularly designed in here, but it is a wall-mounted unit, and it does look a bit more obtrusive. So we are just exploring whether we put 2 pairs of E260s in. So yeah, they're not widely used. Obviously, where you can, you use a centralized system, but from a cost aspect, they are a lot more efficient for people's budgets, and they are going to bring in that mechanical ventilation.
Yeah,
it's important.
Yeah, and, that's we're introducing continuous mechanical ventilation into this build due to the fact that we are trying to make this home airtight. So this wrap that we're installing on the subfloor, the plaster, ceiling and walls, this home we're looking to achieve sub 5 air changes an hour. I actually have a lot of faith back in the team to see a sub 1 result here, just given the nature of what I'm seeing. And then what we're able to do then is provide that mechanical ventilation in lieu of, say, natural ventilation, which is reliant on someone to open and close a window, which we all know we're not always across. So yeah, that's covered.
It's something that's probably, we still get questions from other trades and builders at the moment when you're entering into that sort of air tightness space, that if you want to use these wraps, which are, fantastic, and we elect to use ProClimber largely as well, not because it's a great product, but we just find their tapes are sort of really second to none at the moment with what's available in Australia. But as soon as you start building airtight, people get worried about what's going to happen with the ventilation. So yeah, decentralized units are a good option. A centralized unit, you might be spending upwards of $20,000 installed or more. So it's just, it's going to be something good we can display throughout the episodes.
Yeah, thank you.
G'day guys, welcome back to our Red Brick Reno. Today we'll be going through and I'll be demonstrating subfloor re-stumping. Now, the biggest question I always get asked when we go to redo our subfloors is, where do you start from? Where do you get your heights from? There's a multitude of areas to start from, and the place that we found that's going to be the best to start from is our exterior wall that has our bluestone footing. Because we've had that checked by our engineer, we know it's structurally sound. I'll demonstrate to you why that was our optimal choice for this job. Now, as you can see, we're pretty good here, relatively level. As we walk throughout the house, we're able to transfer our datum line all the way over to our other side. And I'll show you in a minute why this is important. So we're pretty much bang on here. And in the previous video, Anthony and Dean were discussing very reactive soil. So what you can see with this, no load bearing, terribly reactive soil. What you can see, it's sunk quite a bit. So the importance of taking our datum points from our exterior walls sometimes isn't an option, especially in a house that's just been stumped with old concrete posts or red gum posts. But because it's a nice solid sound footing, we're fairly confident with our levels. So I've got my rule here. Let's demonstrate how much this is actually sagged, because it is quite deceiving. So from our previous 2 points that are pretty much bang on level, what you can see here with our reactive soil is 25 mil drop. And if you come around here, Josh, I'll demonstrate our load bearing wall. And this is the reason why we want to re-stump. Now, in most old houses, what you'll find is you have one continuous wall, or possibly 2 continuous walls in a hallway. And they're holding in all your struts for your underpurlings and your roof struts. So what you can see, no stump under here in the past. One of the issues that we found is about 30 mil drop. And that's not ideal. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go around, pack our subfloor up to our finished height, laminate joists and pack underneath our bearers to get that height, because we don't want to be lifting up all the walls with our struts on there or plaster, because it's going to crack and it's going to be a very bad time. So what we're able to do, a couple of stumps underneath there, a couple of stumps underneath there, and we'll be laughing.
So those who know, when it comes to renovations and retrofits, it's about the details. And there's a lot of unearthing and uncovering things you just didn't know were going to be there, or unexpected things that you've got to work with. This particular home, the construction of it was a fitted floor. So what that means is that the walls, the internal stud walls, were actually built onto the timber subfloor structure itself, as opposed to, say, having a particle board flooring down and then the walls built on top of that. So that means we've got some really interesting little connection details when it comes to trying to get this wrap airtight. What have we done here, Dean, to make this all happen? And is there any forward thinking here when it comes to continuing insulation through as well?
Yeah, I think it goes to say, anytime you want to make improvements, if you're not forward planning, if you're not communicating with your whole team, it includes electricians, plumbers, in particular, because they're running most of the protrusions through walls and how we're going to fit off. So something a little bit different. Electricians might come in and strap their cables along joists, the sides, and so forth. Yep. So all that forward thought had to be communicated with the team to make sure that we've got a really good continuous WRB wrap. And then that way it means we've got a continuous insulation layer running throughout the floor. So, but yeah, we've got a fair few obviously tricky parts. So the guys are still taping away here. So there's a little bit of taping beyond where double joists are overlapping next to each other. We want to make sure that we've got continuous insulation under our walls as well. That's really important.
Yes.
Obviously, we don't want to have any thermal bridges where possible. Especially we're working with an old frame that we're just fixing up. So yeah, a lot of forward planning, a lot of time for the team to come in and do the intricate details. It takes a lot longer, as we all know, to do the small intricate details than it does to maybe wrap out runs of WRB and staple it. So yeah, a lot of planning.
Yeah, I can see all the non-verbal communication throughout the build, and we've showcased that previously as well. And we can see the electricians have been very, very kind, and they've been mindful of the size of the holes that they've cut through the WRB or the wrap here, which is always much appreciated. And I can see the backside of the Proclima Exosana wrap here as it comes up, and that'll be sealed to this bottom plate here, just as it will be on this side as well. Continue that airtight seal right through. The insulation's been placed, as you said, underneath. Now, the reason that we're highlighting this section is this is where the kitchen joinery is going to be located. So we're not going to get another opportunity once this is done to come back in here and do any sort of rectification work around airtightness. So we just want to make sure that that is absolutely sealed up nice and airtight. The insulation bats as well.
Yeah.
So this is how they'll be.
Exactly. And I think, we were probably all guilty at a time gone past where we all just looked at insulation as like, yep, we've just got to put it in and chuck it in. But the performance of insulation is such a critical element of building, and there's a lot more awareness now. It might be boring to some people, but making sure a couple of really important things is the insulation. You do not want to compress it. You're affecting the R value of it and decreasing it. You also want to make sure there's no gaps, because the gaps in insulation leads to inefficient energy of what you're trying to achieve. So yeah, it's a lot of time consuming efforts by the team to come in and make sure it fits snug, but basically this is going to give us a good indication of how it's going to be, and later on, once our floor gets laid next week, we'll come in and it's just going to sit nicely over the top, unimpeded.
Now, the client had previously had some blow-in insulation installed in the external walls, and we've touched on that as well previously. So now we have this continuous insulation in the floor where it adjoins the wall insulation, continues up the wall at the ceiling height and continues right round. So now we've got our continuous airtight layer and our continuous thermal layer. So big ticks to see this home perform, well into many generations to come.
Yeah, we can already see, once we've had the WRB down without the insulation alone, only this week we've had a couple more frosts here in Kyneton. So there was actually a scenario where we've had frost condensation affected on the front windows where we haven't put the WRB yet, but this room here had no condensation. So obviously they are high performance windows, but as soon as we're got the ground up, we are having outside elements coming inside. All right, guys, we are got the luxury today to be off-site for our Red Brick Reno renovation, which is our chitin project. I'm joined by Harri from Pure Grain Projects. Harri, you want to just give a quick little intro on yourself, mate?
Yep.
First time on camera with us.
Yes, so I'm Harri. Been in the industry for about 8 years now, doing commercial and residential work, high-end to apartment sort of work. So I'm out on my own this year doing joinery and timber work, and yeah, here we are.
And we've snapped you up and you're on board. So,
Yes.
yeah, so basically, mate, this kitchen has gone from shop drawings right through to now we're in your factory, and this will sit here now until we're installing on site.
Yes.
So it is a good opportunity. It's not an opportunity most people get to actually have a look at a kitchen before it goes into site, installed. So, yeah, let's run through a little bit, mate. Do you want to give us, maybe for people watching that haven't built before, the components of a kitchen? You want to start maybe ground up?
Yep, so we normally start with a kicker frame, just allows everything to be level, keeps all your cupboards off the ground, and then we go to all of our base units, build those, set it up, and then it will go to a substrate. This bench top's going to be a 40mm stone, so I've got a stone template here. Everything's cut out, everything's recessed, so stonemason can take it from site and double check from there.
So let's talk through a couple of things, because we've obviously got appliances pre-fitted off.
Yep.
So that's obviously a step we all like to take to make sure that everything's fitting, running nicely, so we don't get to site and make sure there's any issues.
Correct.
We can pick that up pretty early on.
Yep.
Obviously with this, we're all good.
Yep.
It's all checked, it's all sitting there ready to go. So yeah, maybe talk about a couple of components inside our drawers. We've got something hiding in here.
Yes, so in our corner units, I like to do a double unit instead of just one. It allows for this little, I'm pretty sure it's a half moon pull out. I think that's what it's called. Pulls out, make sure you get a lot of space in the back of the unit. And then they'll all be on soft close hinges, which just gives a touch of class, I think. We always put all of our appliances in as well. So here we've got the oven supplied from the client with a nice retractable door.
Yeah.
But yeah, we set everything up just to make sure everything's right here. If it's right here, it'll be fine on site. So
It makes it pretty smooth. So
yes.
What do we think, when obviously you work with a lot of different type of materials,
Yes.
and as we are sitting here, we're looking at a few different dynamics with different timbers, laminate. Do you want to talk through a little bit about what the selections are on this kitchen that you've worked with?
So they've chosen two colours for this kitchen, French navy and Boston oak wood mat with Tasmanian oak handles to match. They're all laminate. Obviously the handles are solid timber, and we'll have solid timber fixed shelving on the other side. So yeah, 3 different materials. They all blend together nicely, I think. So the architects picked those colours well, I think.
Yeah, I think it's going to look great.
Yeah.
So, one probably important thing to note, we're obviously sitting in a factory at the moment, so it's all open.
Yes. Yep.
So this kitchen's been designed for an existing footprint in an existing house. So, let's talk about where this kind of sits and how it blends in. So we know we're working with some already pre-existing plastered walls.
Yep.
Do you want to chat quickly about where we're situated here in the room?
Yep, perfect. So over here is the corner of the existing room. There was an external door around about here, so that's going to be filled in now. It's just going to be a standard wall with the existing window still there. Across from the oven is going to be a freestanding fridge, and then this unit here with an infill against the wall. So yeah, we're just in the corner of the existing house here, with its own little island bench.
So this is what we'd sort of refer to as the heart of the home.
Yes.
A lot of conversations might happen over here, so we can suss out around the back. This is probably some really cool feature going on with some curves, some solid timber, shelves. But yeah, that'd be where most conversations go.
Yep.
So Dean, just spoke about how important a kitchen is in a home. You know, not only are there conversations held around these spaces for cooking and preparing food, but our client in particular wanted to use this as a workstation. It's a great spot in the home. Lots of natural light comes into this area where it's getting placed, and it was important to have that ability to have free movement as you pass in and around these spaces. Avid gardener, so there's a lot of planting and seedlings and things like that being potted in this space. So yeah, that's kind of where that design element came in with the curves. But it also gives us an opportunity, and thankfully with Harri on board, who loves to work with reclaimed and recycled materials, we've been able to introduce a lot of reclaimed or recycled solid timber products. I know that that features heavily in your work, Harri.
Yep.
Is that where did that come from? Did you have a passion for working with timber specifically over anything else, or?
Yeah, I think it was just an outer work sort of hobby. Making my own furniture, made everything that's in my house at the moment. And just sort of something you don't see every day. Really intrigued me, I guess. Yeah.
So we've got some curved shelves occurring on the back here.
Yep.
How have you approached this? So do you know what the type of timber is actually that we're working with?
Yes. So this is reclaimed messmate, if you can see that on camera. So I'm guessing these were bolted to the rafters or something. So I've just filled everything, all the knots, all the cracks with a resin, just to give it a bit more strength and a bit of longevity.
That's great. And yeah, the curves as well, like that's something you've been able to just template quite easily, and we can see that consistently through. And
Yes. So when ordering all the material, I've got everything machine cut. So templates for the stone, templates for the timber, everything's run off a template, everything works.
Great. I know it's given us a lot of confidence from the design perspective to work with you, directly. It's not too often that you get to have a design team and, the joiner and builder and everyone working together face to face.
Yep.
Being able to pick up the phone during the design phase and actually have those conversations with you about hey, what's available at the moment? What can we do?
Yep.
What can we use in our projects? Has been just pure gold. So speaking of that, the process is probably something that most people maybe don't understand entirely how that works.
Yep.
So in our office, we've got Harvest, our interior designer, who's working with you to create a concept and then develop that a little bit further, go through all the selections and the finishes that you've touched on already, and such as the navy blue and the timber grain finish, and also the reclaimed recycled hardwood timber. But from there, people probably don't realise that we're picking up the phone and having discussions around this as well, all through that process. And once we've got all of our selections and everything finalised, we then pass it on to yourself.
Yep.
So what happens from there?
So once it gets passed on to me, I'll do my own shop drawings. One to show the client and the architects all the sizes I'm doing, but that also allows me to order materials straight from those drawings. Make sure everything works as it should. There's a lot of elements behind the scenes that you don't see, such as the substrates for the stone and all that sort of stuff that's not really nutted out until I get to it. That's really my process. So once you get your shop drawings done, then I'll take it, I'll go and order materials, and then start building. Here we are.
That's great.
Yep.
Any advice for any designers or builders out there that helps joiners? Any information that really assists you to be on the documentation?
Lots of elevations.
Yeah.
Yep. So a plan view is perfect, but elevations of everything makes everything so much easier. The little details of if you want exposed ends, if you want the fronts running through, there's a whole lot of stuff going into it, but as much detail as possible is great. Yep.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to pick up the phone and have a discussion as well, because you'll be amazed at how much better that outcome's going to be.
There was a few conversations in this kitchen, that's for sure. Yeah.
Curves. We'll talk more about that, but actually, let's jump to it now. So Harri, I can see that you've put a lot of thought into the design for the kitchen in your shop drawings here, but I'm guessing you're using some pretty cool software packages and some technology to be able to assist with this. So we've got one of those here that you've got an example up on the screen.
Yep.
how does it all, where does it begin? So how do you normally go through that process? So we've given you our set of drawings, and then from there you're able to develop a detailed set of shop drawings.
Yes.
So for those potentially listening, you do get many opportunities throughout this process to refine those details right up until now, where we've got a templated kitchen here to then go into the home. So it starts from, we've passed over what we've got to you now, and then you take it from there, and you're using certain software packages.
Yep. So I will obviously take your drawings and make my own shop drawings. From there, it's still a little bit hard to see the complete picture. So I can offer a 3D render. Just an example, this isn't this kitchen, but at least you'll be able to see exactly what you're getting, all the sort of details, shaker doors, standard doors, you can change all the colours. So yeah, you'll really know what you're getting through this as well. Yep.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think that's an important thing to just clarify, that the software packages that we're using in our design studio allow us to provide exceptional amounts of detail, but it's never going to be at that point of the refinement that's required to be able to have what we call shop details that can then be sent to machines that can then fabricate, and these curves, for example, are all machined, that will be able to provide that level that's required for machine operations. So that's where we're able to then sort of pass on to do so to Harri. And even like you're saying now, you're still going to be in design. I actually heard something recently where, you never stop design. Even through the construction documentation, as you refine and work these things out, there's going to be things that just become apparent as you review and then develop to, that design continues right through to yourself here.
Correct.
So you're able to provide all of those options to clients so they can sit down with you and you can go through it all. Yeah, great.